Right? For room. I don't know. God has it's a very funny sense of humor. I've been a Dodgers fan. I came here in the States in 1988, the year the Dodgers won the World Series.
Yeah.
Any Dodgers fan in the house?
Yeah.
In this,
Yeah.
in this Angels country. But we used to live in LA, so I was a big Dodgers fan. So I said, all right, here in '88, the last time they were in the World Series and won the World Series with the most iconic home run in Major League Baseball, right?
Kirk Gibson, yeah.
And got scheduled for me to be here and give this talk on the night that there's a World Series. So let's move on to the meat of the topic for tonight, the more important things. Where's our clicker here? Oh, yes. So, what's our goal for tonight? Tonight we'd like to try to answer these 4 questions that is before us. 1, what are the challenges confronting us as a Christian family? 2, why is God's plan for families not happening? 3, what is God's plan for the family? We need to know what God wants out of a family. And 4, what can we do to build a strong Christian family? So let's take a look at some numbers here. You know, when back during my elementary and high school years, when I need to find information, I have to dig through those thick encyclopedias, right?
Yeah.
But now it's so convenient. All you have to do is log into your laptop, open the laptop, and go to Mr. Google and ask Mr. Google all this information. So, great times, great times. So let's look at some numbers here. 72. (72% of married couple in Orange County. 72 of marriages in Orange County. 72% of marriages in Orange County ends up in divorce. Shocking, right? 33 people every day in Orange County files for divorce, including weekends. Orange County has one of the highest divorce rates in the nation. And what's the average in the States, in the US? It's about 50, about 40 to 50. That's what statistics says. In California, 60%, yeah, higher. I mean, the odds are stacked against us, kind of like the Dodgers tonight. Not looking pretty good right now. Next one, 50. There are 50 states in the United States where same-sex marriage is legalized. Practically the entire United States. Right? What's more sad is there are major religions in our country where they sanction same-sex marriage. They allow it to happen. And one thing that we can be truly proud of as Catholics is we know what the absolute truth is. You know, and we don't take the most popular stance, but we take the stance that is according to God's plan, according to God's teachings. It's not popular to be against same-sex marriage nowadays. I think services, more than 50% of people, especially in California, favor same-sex marriage. But our church is, through the church history, we take not so popular positions because that's what God wants us to do. And it's something that we have to be proud of as Catholics. Next one. 1,700 per day. 664,000 per year, based on the survey that was done in 2013, according to the CDC, Center for Disease Control, which is monitoring what? Guess what that figure is about? Abortion. We're killing 1,700 babies per day, and 664,000 per year babies. And we are so aghast and we're so shocked when 3,500 people died in World Trade Center during the 9/11. And it really, that's really a sad part of our history. Like, in 3 days, there were more aborted people than people who died in the World Trade Center. Sad, isn't it? So, those are some of the challenges we have. To sum up, we have these attacks on the family. We have divorce, which is very common and very prevalent nowadays. Same-sex marriage. Abortion. It's all about, to sum it up, it's all part of the culture of death that Pope Francis and Pope John Paul II, Saint John Paul II, has spoken about before. That we have to fight. We have to go against this time if we are to want to get closer to God. Now, why is God's plan for families not happening? What's the reason behind all this, these statistics? One, materialism. To some degree, we're all guilty of it. We're guilty. We want more. We want to accumulate more and more and more. It's never enough, right? The other day, this one priest was saying, do we really need all those new iPhones? Do we really need all those new gadgets? What's wrong with our iPhone 6? What's wrong with our iPhone 7? Do we really need to get iPhone 10? Right? So he said, is it a necessity or is it something that we just want because we want to have the latest, we want to have the best? And we're living in Orange County. We're blessed to be living in this country, right? It's a blessing. It's a beautiful country. We may consider it one of the most affluent places to live in the U.S. compared to the rest of the country, more so with the rest of the world. We're living in a very affluent place. And do you think there's a correlation between our abnormally high divorce rate and our affluent place that we're living in? I think there is. I think there's some correlation to it. And our pastor was talking about it 2 weeks ago. He's saying that we're blessed to be living in Orange County, but the sad part is a lot of the people in Orange County don't really regularly go to church and don't even need to go to church because they have everything that they need. They feel that there's nothing that a church can provide to them because they're very self-sufficient. And it's sad when that thing happens because ideally we should let material things bring us closer to God and use those material things as opposed to drawing us away from God. I'm speaking to the choir here because you're all here on a Friday evening and you're all church going, but that's the reality that I want us to be made aware of. So, number one, materialism. Second, changing values. As I mentioned earlier, we have divorce being more acceptable now, and same-sex marriage. I mean, when my parents were growing up, they would. I don't think the definition of marriage would be acceptable during their time. The same-sex marriage. The popularity of same-sex marriage just ballooned rose over the last 10 years. I remember when we had like a legislation 10 years ago, it was on the ballot and it didn't pass. But now, the whole country legalized same-sex marriage. So the challenge is those changing values, where things that are not acceptable before are being made acceptable now. Number three, time. Well, we don't have a lot of time, right? It's something that's very precious. I mean, if you look at the 24-hour day, we spend 7 to 8 hours sleeping. For some of us, some are 6, some are 9. But on the average, it's about 7 to 8 hours. A third of our time, of the 24 hours, right? We spend about 9 hours at work if we're working in a family-friendly office, right? Because it takes you about 30 minutes to go there. I mean, no, sorry, 10 hours. Because you have to drive there, you have to drive back. Let's say 30 minutes going there and 30 minutes coming back, and then 1 hour lunch. That's 10 hours. So you're left with very few hours. And then what do we do when we go home? And I'm guilty of this. My wife lovingly calls me out on this. You know, she would find me being on the phone, looking at the phone, and she goes like, "Hon, you're just here for like a few hours. Your kids are only awake for a few hours, and you're choosing to be on the phone other than talking to them." So, you know, boom, I'm guilty of it. So it's a great reminder for me. On the average, people are saying, surveys saying that we're spending about almost 3 hours every day in front of our electronic devices, iPhones, laptop. I'm not pointing fingers, I'm guilty of it, but it's something that we need to be made conscious of, especially when we have growing kids like us. We have 4 growing kids. Our eldest is 13 and we have a 6-year-old. So you have to make sure that we spend enough time with them because they grow up so fast and before you know it, they're gone. On the average, people watch 5 hours of TV in the US per day, per night. So that's like almost, there goes your 24 hours, right? So, where's the time for prayer? Where's the time for spiritual reading? Where's the time for one-on-one conversation with your wife? I think I've seen a survey that says there, we spend about, on the average, about 3 to 4% of our time talking to our spouses for married people. That's very little. Right? Communication is very important, and we have to make time for our kids. If we're married and we have small or adult children, and we have to make time especially for our spouses. So those are the challenges, and those are the reasons, some of the reasons, not all the reasons, but some of the reasons why God's plan for families is not happening. Materialism, changing values, changing norms, and not knowing what's the best use of time. So, now, to be able to do what's right, we need to know we need to learn what is God's plan for the family. You know. Really, so let's examine what what God wants out of us. God wants us to be His strong foundation here on earth. The family to be the strong foundation here on earth. God wants the family to be the basic building block of the society. The church and the society starts with the family. And the fundamental task of the family is to be life-giving, to be the source of life. I still remember when my wife and I went to our couple session with our priest when we're about to get married. One of the questions that he asked us is if we're open to life. And I didn't know about that. You know, I was surprised with that question. Are you open to life? And of course, he said yes. And then I asked him, why did you ask us that question? And then he said, it's because if you're not open to life, I'm not going to allow you to get married. Because it's one of the reasons why, procreation is one of the reasons why we have the sacrament of marriage. So we have to be open to life. If two people are not open to life, the priest can say no to marrying, to not marrying them. Or if they want to get married, the priest can say, I don't want to marry you because you don't know why you're getting married. We have to be evangelizers. We have to spread the gospel through our actions. Actions more than words. As one of our favorite saints famously said, preach the gospel at all times, and when necessary, use words. And I've seen that. So as parents, we have to